Okay. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to our call this morning. Hope you're having a great week. And we were just talking, maybe some of you heard this, some of you may not have been on yet. But, when it comes to sales, we have this saying, you can make a great week in one day. You make a great month in 1 week. You make a great month sometimes in 1 day. And so regardless of where you are in terms of sales, just know that at any moment that can turn, right? And the worst thing we can do is start pressing, because prospects feel that, don't they? You've all experienced that. You've got people on your team that they start pressing, and when they start pressing, it's even harder to close sales. So just remind everybody, maybe yourself and other people, just remind everybody, hey, listen, you make a great month in 1 day. You make a great month in 1 week. You make a great week in 1 day, because you never know. So we do enough, we do it correctly, and we know good things are coming. All right. So today we're going to talk about values, principles, and standards. So are they synonyms or are they building blocks? What do you guys think? Values, principles, and standards. Are they the same thing, or do they build on each other? What do you think?
They're building blocks.
I'm sorry?
They're building blocks.
They're slightly different, and they work together.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. Anybody think they're synonyms? Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to say they're both. Okay. I'm going to say that they're synonyms and they're also building blocks. So let's look first at how they're synonyms, and then we're going to look at how they're building blocks and how they build on each other and actually can form kind of this cycle, right? And so let's take a look. So values. So here's a definition of values. Values are basic and fundamental beliefs that guide or motivate attitudes, actions. They help us determine what's important to us. They even provide general guidelines for conduct, right? What are your values? Values are basic, fundamental beliefs. Look at the words on the screen here, right? Values are, do we value truth, respect, peace, ethics, friendship, support, education, hope, principles? Are they're values, right? That guide the way we act, because we believe in them, because we believe they're important, right, to us. And they're not all the same, right, for different people. We'll talk about that in just a little bit. So values, I think as we think about what are your values, that's kind of like, how do you live life? What's important to you? And you can see some of these words that are synonyms for values. All right. Well, what about principles? Well, you see a lot of the same words, don't you? What are your principles? What are principles? Are a personal or specific basis of conduct or management. It's a guiding sense of the requirements and obligations of right conduct. Principles help to define our conduct. If a principle that we live by is honesty, then we're honest. If ethics are important to them, then we want to do what's right for the right reason, right? You look at the principle: dignity, people, behavior, integrity. Those are similar words to values. We live by certain values. We live by certain principles. We also live by certain standards. They're morals and ethics, habits, actions. They're established maybe by somebody in authority over us. Maybe they're part of the culture or the custom, or maybe they're just standards that we've accepted, that we've identified. Sometimes our standards, we learn those through our environment, right? We're raised in different settings, a home setting, a home environment, right? But standards and principles and values, in some ways, they're synonyms because they all work together to establish our code of conduct. We could say, okay, my code of conduct is determined by my values. My code of conduct is determined by my principles or by my standards. You see that there are certain definitions for each of these that make them synonymous, that all speak to our code of conduct. We have a way that we determine to act, and ideally, if as we develop character and integrity, the way that our code of conduct is the same no matter where we are. Work, home, different organizations we're part of, friends, doesn't matter. Our code of conduct is consistent because of our values or principles or standards. So I want to submit to you that in some ways, values, principles, and standards are synonymous. At the same time, they're, as what you guys said, they're building blocks, right? And so we're going to look at values and principles and how they set our standards. Okay, so let's take a look, and let's begin with values again. Okay, so what are values? Well, here's what I would say. Values are they're one's judgment of what is important. So I think about what's important, and I evaluate whether or not that's a value to me. Their values, I would say, are characteristics that I expect of myself and other people. It's an expectation that I have of myself and other people. Values, right? Values help me understand why I do what I do. Why do I act a certain way? Because I have these values. Why do I make the decisions that I do? Because I have these values. Why do I believe what I do? Because I have these values. So values are connected very specifically to our why. They're not the same for everybody. I guess you can have right or wrong values, but I don't know that every person, right? Not everybody's going to have the same values, and in a lot of ways you can't say one's right and one's wrong. Example: let me. What if a person is working with a company and they've been there a long time, and they find out that the company is defrauding their clients. Okay? They find out that their company is defrauding their clients. Now, if this individual, if one of their core values is honesty, everybody check your mute button, okay? If one of their values is honesty, and they find out that their company is defrauding their clients, that person is going to blow the whistle, because honesty is a core value to them. Now, what about the person where loyalty is really a deeper core value to them? I'm not sure you can say honesty or loyalty, which is more important. I mean, I know what I think because I know my values. But one could argue, well, how do you say loyalty is more important or honesty is more important? To the employee that values loyalty more than honesty, they're very likely not going to blow the whistle. So is that wrong? I'll leave that for you to decide. I know what I think. I'll leave it for you to decide, right? But you see that you get in these gray areas when you start talking about values in some ways. So values, what do they do for us? That's a good question, right? What do they do for us? Well, I'm gonna submit values guide our actions, right? Take a look at this image, right? So if ethics is of high value to you, it's going to guide the way you act. If respect is of high value to you, it's going to guide the way you act. It's going to guide the way you interact with other people, right? If acceptance is of high value to you, then it's going to guide the way you relate to other people. You get the point. They guide our actions. So values are important. Why? Because they guide our actions. They give stability in relationships. Now, I tell you what, let's unmute. Somebody tell me, how do values give stability in relationships? What do you think?
If you have the same values or similar values, there's not as much conflict. Or if there is conflict, it can be resolved, for lack of better terminology, more easily because your values are aligned.
Okay, so values are aligned. So we might get hurt feelings, or we might step on people's toes or something like that. But because the values are in alignment, there's more stability. Is that what you're saying, David?
Yeah. Instead of building that house on sand.
Yeah, you build it on the rock.
Leave the biblical references out.
Thank you.
And I'd add on that to say, when you trust someone and you have similar goals, that's always going to bring a level of stability. Trust is huge in stability. And so, all of these things, support, trust, all of those things kind of go hand in hand. When you work with people who have integrity and you believe they have integrity, you want to go the same direction they go.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna submit that part of stability, a big part of stability, is consistency. And values, when we really buy into our values and we know what they are, and they really are core values to us, we're consistent with them. Okay? So as a parent, right? We want stable relationships with our children. Well, if our kids don't know how we're going to react, if in a certain situation we react this way, and in that same situation another time we react a completely different way, there's no stability there. And it's hard to develop that healthy relationship with our children without stability. And stability, I'm going to submit to you that when we really latch on to what our core values are, then we live life with more consistency, and it creates stability in relationships. And it's the same with your team. If your team tiptoes around you because they're not really sure how you're going to react to a certain situation, then it creates instability in the relationship and in the team. And teams don't work well together, don't perform well together when there's instability, right? So values, they don't just guide our actions, they give stability in relationships because they do guide our actions, and there's consistency in who we are and in what we do. They also guard our decisions. Values guard our decisions. As when we get to that fork in the road, right? And do we need to decide this, or do we need to decide that? Well, what helps us make that decision? Our values. Do we value honesty? Well, it helps us make a decision. Do we value loyalty? Helps us make a decision. Do we value work ethic? Do we value love? Do we value respect? Do we value acceptance? Peace? All of these values, they guard our decisions. So values, you like the 3 G's, they guide action, they give stability, and they guard our decision. That's what they do for us, at least, and probably a lot more. So I thought, well, I want to share mine with you, because one of the great things, just transparently, about getting to meet with you guys and do this is, as I'm preparing, it really brings clarity for me in a lot of this, enhanced clarity, right? And so I started thinking, I know my values, but are these still the values? Are they really what is core to me? And so I want to share mine with you. All right. Honesty. I think that may be at the core. When our boys were growing up, they got in the most trouble when they were dishonest. They could do something wrong, but if they admitted it, the punishment was not nearly as bad as if they lied and tried to cover it up. Why? Because we wanted them to learn that lies don't stay in the secret. Lies at some point come out in the open. And there's always more pain, more hurt, more price to pay when we try to hide it instead of admitting it and moving on. So honesty, that was the thing that we were just so dogmatic on. We tell the truth. Why? Because trust and trustworthiness is at the core. Somebody said a little bit earlier, trusted relationships are built on trust. We've talked about it before. Everything travels at the speed of trust. We sell at the speed of trust. We lead at the speed of trust. We build relationships at the speed of trust. Everything travels at the speed of trust. And without honesty, we don't have trust. So core value, honesty, right? Work ethic. Y'all, I'm not overly gifted. At the same time, I can work. And work ethic drives results. Y'all know success. I'm going to tell you, success in pretty much any endeavor, it comes down to 3 things, in my opinion. All right? You may want to write these down. 3 things. Success, sales, success in a relationship, success in health, athletics, doesn't matter. Here they are, 3 things. 1, be a person of character and conviction. Believe in what you're doing. Believe in that relationship. Believe in that team. Believe in this, in the product or service you're selling. Believe in the necessity of fitness and health. Character and conviction. Number 2, internally driven work ethic. Y'all, there's a lot of us, we want to believe that we have great internally driven work ethic. But you know what I'm going to submit to you? You don't really know for sure what kind of work ethic you have in a work environment until you don't have to go to the office every day and your boss knows what time you showed up. Now, y'all know this to be true. We know it to be true more than ever before now, right? Because of COVID, you have people in your team that they have strong internally driven work ethic, and they have, somebody put us on hold. There we go. Thank you. You know people in your team that they have great work ethic, because it doesn't matter if they're stuck at home or they're in their office, they're still doing their work and they're creating results because they have internally driven work ethic. And then we know people, they need supervision. Now, they do great work as long as they've got great supervision. So that's something that we all got to ask ourselves. How about us? We're not void of that question. I mean, we're not exempt from that question as leaders. So a value, I'm going to submit that part of our values should be work ethic, strong internal work ethic, because success, character, conviction, work ethic, and having a healthy enough ego to learn from other people. That's what drives success. Those three things. Give me a person that has those three characteristics, and they're going to learn to be successful in anything they do. That's my theory and my belief. I've seen it happen too much. So y'all, value, honesty, because it leads to trust, and everything travels at the speed of trust. Work ethic, because work ethic drive results. Personal responsibility, taking ownership for ourselves and for other people. If we're going to be leaders, we have to embrace ownership. And I'm going to talk about this again, that if you get defensive, pause, that's a red flag. Don't let yourself get defensive, right? Because that is a barrier to taking ownership, to taking responsibility. And if we're going to lead well, which is what you guys are tasked to do, if we're going to do that and do it well, I'm going to submit to you, we have to own it. We have to take personal responsibility. It's got to be a value to us. It shapes our conduct. It guides our actions. It gives stability, and it guards our decisions. Personal responsibility. And then lastly, gratitude. Because here's what I'm going to submit to you, that if gratitude is a value, if I place great significance on gratitude, you know what I learned? I learned to be thankful, which helps me learn humility. Because just in the very nature of being thankful, I learned that I didn't do it all myself. It's hard to be prideful and thankful at the same time. I don't even know if it's possible. When we're thankful, it automatically pushes the focus outside of us, because by definition, we didn't do it our own power. So gratitude leads to thankfulness, which leads to and encompasses humility, helps us grow in humility, which makes us less selfish. So we're kinder. We're willing to serve because we're humble. It's not about us, it's about other people. So we're willing to serve other people. We respect other people and the differences that we have. And we learn to love. Gratitude. Let's don't underestimate an attitude of gratitude. So these are the values that I believe, for me personally, these are what I hold on to. Honesty, because it builds trust. Work ethic, because it creates results. Personal responsibility, because I need to own it. And gratitude, because even though I own it, I know I didn't do it in my own power. I'm not that good. I'm not that smart. Gratitude. Y'all, these values right here, they guide our actions. They give stability in all relationships, work, family, friends, doesn't matter. And they guard our decisions. So values, my goodness, they're critical. So what are yours, and why is it important to know them? Let's unmute. Before I show you why I think it's important to know them, I want to know why you think it's important to know them. Why is it important to know our values? Come on.
If you don't, you're a ship without a rudder.
Okay, ship without a rudder, without values. Great, love that. What else?
When it's time to make the tough decisions, you need something to be able to fall back on.
Oh, beautiful. I love that. Who was that?
Candace,
Candace. Thank you, Candace. When they give, when it's a tough decision, your values give you the courage, give you the ability to make the right decision. I love that. Anybody else? Why is it important to know our values? Well, okay, so let me tell you why I think. Because values impact lives. You know why you're a sales manager? You're good, yeah. Yeah, you like to lead. Yeah, all those you like to drive success. But I hope all of you realize that one of the reasons you're a manager, you're a leader, is because you've been given the gift to impact lives. And values impact lives. When we demonstrate consistency in our values, it changes people. They see it, they observe it, and they're changed. Tell you a quick story. When President Reagan died, they had the funeral. And as you can imagine, world leaders came from all over to attend the funeral. And a lot of them got up to speak. And the common theme of their speeches about President Reagan was that his core values transcended politics. His values transcended politics. That's a mouthful right there, especially what we're witnessing today. His values transcended politics. His vice president, y'all know, George H.W. Bush, got up to talk. And he said, I learned a lot from President Reagan, but three things I'll never forget. I learned kindness, I learned courage, and I learned decency. And he went on to tell the story about after the attempted assassination, and he was shot, and he was in the hospital, a nurse spilled some water on the floor, and President Reagan got up out of bed, got a towel, wiped up the water so the nurse wouldn't get in trouble. Values impact lives. So, what are yours? What are yours? You know, they're kind of like goals. If you don't write them down, they don't mean much. So that's an assignment, y'all. Here, do this. Take a picture of that page. Get your phone, take a picture of that page. Okay? Everybody got it? Take a picture of that page and ask yourself, now, write down yours. What are they? Because we all need guides to our decisions. We all need stability in our relationships. And values give them to us. And we need to guard our decisions. Okay? So we need them. And they impact lives. Not very good if we don't have them written down. So write your values down, and why those values. You know, that slide you took a picture of. Why is honesty? Because it builds trust. Because everything travels at the speed of trust, right? Why work ethic? Because it drives results. Why personal responsibility? Because nobody else is going to take it. I need to own it. Why gratitude? Because it keeps me humble, thankful, appreciative, respectful, kind, generous. So what are yours? Write them down. That's an assignment. All right. Okay. Now let's talk about principles. What are principles? Well, we talked about principles. They're part of code of conduct, if you want to look at that definition. But principles are also truths that stand the test of time. They're just true. We may not like it all the time, but they're just truths that stand the test of time, right? They're fundamental. They're primary. They're general laws of truth. Yes, they're codes of conduct, but they're also this: truths that stand the test of time. So I want to show you some examples. This is one I just Googled and I got it online. So here are 10 success principles. You're the only person responsible for your success. Okay, I think I'd agree with that. There's no progress without action. Focus is everything. Y'all remember us talking about the leadership quality of focus? Focus is about priorities and concentration. We got to know the priorities and have concentration. We can know the priorities, but without concentration, we get nothing done. We might have concentration, get a lot of stuff done, but if we're not doing the priorities, it doesn't matter. So focus is everything. You must believe you can. You don't have to invent the wheel. You can learn from other people. In fact, I would submit you're just making it hard on yourself if you refuse to learn from other people. Persistence always wins. Failure is essential. I tell salespeople all the time, I wish I could take the hard days away. I wish I could take the hard weeks away. I wish I could take the hard decisions away, the losses. I wish I could take the hard away. But that's not life. There's something about the hard, there's something about the failure that's necessary to equip us, to prune us, to shape us into becoming who we really need to be and have an impact on lives like we need to. So failure is essential. Positivity fuels productivity. Yeah. Helping others is a big part of being successful. Success is a journey of countless small steps. None of that is rocket science, but they are principles. They're true. They stand the test of time. Y'all know I'm a big fan of John Maxwell. And so I started looking at his stuff. What are the principles that he teaches? Well, he's got what he calls the number one principle. People do what people see. People do what people see, right? We know that. We know that from watching our kids. We know that from ourselves. People do what people see. He's got a 70-25-5 principle, right? He says that invest 70% of your time in the areas of your strength. What are you good at? Well, invest 70% of your time in the areas that you're already good at, you're already strong at. Hire other people, get other people on your team who are good at other things. Invest 70% of your time in the areas of strength, 25% of the time in areas in which you want to improve, right? Because better never stops. Y'all like how I always work that in? That's a principle. I'm going to get to it in a minute. 25% of our time to areas in which we want to improve. Better never stops. We got to pay attention to continual improvement, and then only 5% of our time on areas that are true weaknesses. That's the 75-25 principle. Maxwell teaches that's a principle. We may not always like those things, but they're true in his opinion. Okay, here's another one. Leadership is servanthood. Leadership is servanthood. You know what happens when you serve other people? You turn leadership into fellowship. People follow you because you serve them, because you're credible, because you're trustworthy, because you're authentic. All these things we've been talking about, right? Leadership is servanthood. Impact comes from relationships, not positions. We impact lives because of our values, not the position we have. Y'all get that? If you're trying to impact lives because you're quote unquote the manager, you're in for a rude awakening. You will never have the impact on lives that you want if you're just trying to do it because of a position. We impact lives through relationships, and values create stability in relationships. So we're back to values, right? So principle, impact comes from relationships, not positions. Great leaders call for great commitment. We're going to talk more about that. It's connected with standards. Y'all, great leaders call for great commitment, because you know what great leaders are about? They're about accomplishing big goals. Wildly important goals, as one author puts them. Great leaders call for great commitment. Credibility comes by meeting needs and solving problems. That's a principle. We gain credibility when we meet needs and we solve problems. You've heard me say before, the fastest way to leadership is to solve problems. Why? Because you gain credibility. That means you have competence and you have character, and that builds trust, and people want to follow you. And then look at this one, y'all. This is an important one. He calls it the 101% principle. Look at this, y'all. Everybody pay attention. Are you looking? Affirmation comes before confrontation. Affirmation comes before confrontation. And Maxwell says, find 1% that you can affirm in somebody or what they've done, and give 100% of your efforts to affirm it. Find 1% you can affirm, and then put everything you have into affirming it. Then care enough to confront. Care enough to coach them up. Care enough to help them meet the standards. Don't lower the standards. We'll talk about that in a minute. Care enough to get them up to the standards. Care enough to coach them up. I think I've told y'all this story. I can't remember for sure. My mom had 3 older brothers. 2 of them were coaches. And when I was a kid, I was going to quit football. And my mom said, well, before you quit, Mark, call Uncle John. So I called Uncle John. I said, Uncle John, he was one of the coaches. He was the coach. I said, Uncle John, I'm going to quit. He said, Mark, why are you going to quit? I said, because the coach, all they're ever doing is yelling at me. They just yell at me all the time. I can't do anything right. He started laughing. I said, not funny, Uncle John. He just kept laughing. He said, Mark. He said, you know what that means? I said, no, he doesn't like me. He said, no, Mark, if he's yelling at you, he believes in you. He sees something there that you're not getting to, that you have, and he believes in you, and he's trying to coach you up. If he didn't believe in you, he wouldn't waste his breath on you. We got to coach people up, y'all. That means we got to care enough to confront them. Only after we've affirmed them. Principles, Maxwell. Okay? So now let me share mine with you. Here's some principles that I've learned, that I live by, that I try to help people with. All right? And you've seen them. Everything travels at the speed of trust. So tell the truth. That's a principle, y'all. We may not always like it, but it's true. Everything travels at the speed of trust. So tell the truth. Why is more important than what? Why is more important than what? So we got to know why. How do you help your kids? Know their why. How do you build a healthy marriage? Know your spouse's why. How do you help your teammates and your team members succeed? Know their why. How do you increase your close ratio? Know the prospect's why. Why is more important than what? So we got to know the why, because what Simon Sinek says, right? People don't buy what we sell, they buy why we sell it. So we better know why we're selling it, and we better know why they're interested in it, because when we connect those dots, close ratio is going to start to climb. So principles, why is more important than what? People need to be heard. So listen. We've talked about this. They're principles. They're principles. Opinions bow in the presence of conviction. So deepen your conviction. Winston Churchill, right? He said, a man with conviction will overwhelm 100 with only opinion. Now, I've said this to you before. When a prospect gives you an objection is nothing more than an opinion, and that opinion will bow in the presence of your conviction if you understand how to communicate that conviction effectively. And close ratios start to climb again. Because opinions bow in the presence of conviction. So deepen the conviction. Conviction overcomes objection far faster than sales technique. So that's a principle. It's just true. Again, we may not always like it. It's true. Attitude and effort are the only two things we control. But fortunately, that's enough. We can't control talent. We can control attitude, and we can control effort. We can't control circumstances. We can control attitude. We can't control effort. We can't control what the prospect does, but we can control our attitude and our effort. Attitude and effort are the only two things we control, but it's enough if we're paying attention to them. So we got to fill that attitude gas tank up every day. That's how we control it. We succeed on purpose. It's not on accident. So we take responsibility. We own it. The harder you work, the luckier you get, right? I don't believe in luck. We succeed on purpose. And that's one of those things that, you know, I keep saying this, we don't always like to hear that. When I'm not doing well, or when something's not happening the way I want it to, I don't want to hear we succeed on purpose, because that means I'm not doing something I should. But y'all, it's true. It's a principle. And then better never stops. It's a principle. It doesn't. There's always opportunity to improve. So we embrace that. And we keep getting better. And we take steps back, and that's okay, because we learn something and we grow from it, and we keep moving forward. So principle, I love to talk about principles. I think you can tell that. I hope you can. I love to talk about values, because values impact lives. So what are principles? They're truths that stand the test of time. They're fundamental, primary, they're general laws of truth. So what are yours? Okay, here you go. Take a picture of that right there. You got that? Take a picture of that one also. Those are some good examples, y'all. The point is, what are yours? Do you have them written down? That's your assignment, right? Write your values down, identify them, write your principles down. Because y'all, when it feels like the wheels are falling off, it's Candace, right? And that Candace that you told me earlier about, when it's hard, values help you make the right decision, right? When it's hard, when it feels like the wheels are falling off, when we're in this time of uncertainty, when we're not sure what's going to happen tomorrow, next week, down the road. Values give us stability, and principles help us know that, you know what, if I follow these principles, they're true, and we're going to succeed on purpose. It may not be exactly what we thought. It may not be exactly what we want, but we will get it done because of these principles. And y'all, values and principles, they set standards. What are they? Standards. They're the norm, the requirement, the expectation. And y'all, look at this. Make no apologies for setting high standards. Don't do it. Don't lower the standards for underperformers. You know what it tells them? It tells them you don't believe in them. Don't quit coaching the underperformer. If you quit coaching the underperformers, that means you've given up on them. Like I was talking about, my Uncle John said, you've given up on them. And if you've given up on them, who's gonna coach them? Who's gonna lead them? Who's gonna help them achieve more than they ever dreamt possible? So what do? You find the 1% that you can affirm, and you give it 100%. Then you care enough to confront, and you help them grow and start to meet these standards. But let's don't ever apologize for setting high standards, the requirements, the expectations, right? So what are yours? What are your standards, right? In the work environment, what are the standards for sales dollars in a month? What are they? You know, I mean, you guys know that. What about contacts? You got standards, you got expectations of contacts to make every day. What about close ratio? You got standards on close ratio, right? If you make this many calls, you're going to get this many presentations and you're going to get this many closes. And if somebody isn't hitting those percentages, that's where we coach them up. Coaching by the numbers. I know you know all that stuff. You got this incredible system. I know you know it. Those are your standards, right? What about referrals? I don't know if that's something for y'all, but what are they? And A, do you know what they are? B, does your team know what they are? It's hard to hit standards that we don't know about. It's hard to hit something we don't know is what it needs to be. So let's set some high standards. Let's let the values and the principles drive us toward these standards and meet the standards. So what are they? That's the first question. What are they? The second question is, what if we hit them? What if we hit the standards? What's that going to do for us? What's it going to do for the individual? What's it going to do for our team? What's it going to do for the company? What's it going to do for the prospect? Don't skip over the what if. That's the 12-week year journey. Brian Moran, right? Know what you're after, know what your goals are, know what your standards are, and know the what if. Don't skip over that second step, what if, because in the identification of the what if, it gives us the it gives us help to be great in the moment, right? Because when we don't want to do what we know we need to do, if we'll switch the thought process from, man, I don't want to do that, to, oh yeah, if I do that, here's what's going to happen. The what if helps us make the right decision. So what if, that's important. So how do you hit these standards? You know what they are. You got the what if. Now, how do you hit them? You hit them with principles and values. You hit them with the principles that you live by and that you teach. You hit them because you're living out these values. You've created stability on the team. You've guarded your decisions. You've guided your actions because you have these values and you live out these principles and you hit the standards. And you know what happens? You raise the bar. Standards don't just stay standards. What are you looking for? You're looking for people who, they don't just meet the standard, they set new standards. They bust through the standards. They raise the bar. That's the people we're looking for, right? That's probably who you were before you became a sales leader. You raised the bar. You led your team and you kept raising the bar. Values and principles, when we live them out consistently, we don't just meet the standards, we start raising the standards and we lead it. We raise the bar, we set new standards on purpose. So values, principles, and standards, you know what they do? They raise the bar. When they're all working together, they raise the bar and they create breakthrough results. And there you are on that little orange bar, right? With the cone, and you're encouraging your team. And you guys are growing and you're setting new standards. Why? Because as a leader, you know your values. You know the principles that are going to drive success, and you execute them consistently. And standards start to get set, and then reset, and then reset, because you keep raising the bar, because better never stops. And we create breakthrough results, and we enjoy breakthrough victory, right? And it doesn't matter what the circumstances are, because this is the way it works. It's truth. It just is. Doesn't mean it's consistently like that. Sometimes we got to learn stuff. So sometimes, sometimes y'all, it's hard to learn when we're having all this success. We think, well, why don't you learn anything? I mean, look what's happening, right? But y'all, that's the very time that you got to pay close attention. What I need to learn, because if we don't keep learning, we'll have a dip, and then we'll be forced to learn and we'll come out of it, right? But we'd rather not have that dip. So we keep learning. We identify our values. We know the principles. We meet the standards, but more importantly, we raise them and we create breakthrough results. All right. I hope this is helpful, everybody.